everyone. It is my privilege to reach out to you all and get a chance to talk about this very important topic today. And I thank the Science City authorities, the director Science City, and all the curators and other scientific staff for giving me this opportunity. As you all know that this is a burning topic, and COVID-19 has affected our lives in an unprecedented scale, so much so that we all of us feel that this perhaps is a life-changing event for all of us. And at the same time, it has thrown up some unique challenges. Along with the disease, a pandemic of misinformation, a pandemic of confusion, a pandemic of mistrust is also doing the rounds, primarily because so much is being said and talked of, which is hardcore technical subject, and so much of medical literature is being generated that sometimes it is even difficult for qualified doctors, people who are working in the field, to interpret this huge amount of data. We can well understand that it is such a challenge for the layman. However, this information, thanks to the explosion of information technology in this era, has reached the common man. But it is a matter of debate whether it has been helpful or it is serving to increase the air of confusion. With this background in mind, we have attempted to clear some doubts which are being generated in the minds of people. We have chosen some of from the wide number of questions which we have received from the Science City authorities, and it will be an attempt on my part to try and answer some of the queries in the best possible way in order to address the confusion and to an extent, misinterpretation of the situation by the general people, so that they in turn can go back to their friends, families, relatives, and explain the situation in the best possible way in order to help others. We have christened this talk as Navigating the Rough Sea, the third wave of COVID and beyond. As we all know, we are already in the tail of the second wave of COVID. So now our main concern is the third wave. Question. We have heard a lot about the mutations in a virus. Please tell us why this is happening and what may be the effect. Well, in short, mutations mean a change in the structure of the virus, that is a change in the viral constitution due to a change in the genetic material of the virus. As we all know by this time, SARS coronavirus is a RNA virus, so its genetic material is ribonucleic acid or RNA. Now, the RNA replicates with the help of an enzyme known as RNA polymerase, which unfortunately lack an ability which we call proofreading ability. This is true for all RNA polymerases across all RNA viruses. You would understand that proofreading means in order to correct any error that may have inadvertently crept in at the time of replication, that is RNA replication in this case. Now, because this power is lacking, so RNA viruses in general are prone to errors during replication, which we would call mutations in the genetic material. Now, what happens as a result of this mutation? because these RNA code for proteins, the proteins likewise undergo small changes in their constitution, and these changes are manifested as a phenotypic expression and leads to a change in characteristics of that particular virus. This is what mutation is in a short term. Now, what happens with the mutation? If we go back to Darwin's theory, the mutations which provide the virus a survival advantage over others are the mutations which are likely to be successful. That is, they are likely to be transmitted from one generation to the other, or likely to become the circulating strain of that virus in the environment or amidst the host. So what is the survival benefit? Interestingly, the more lethal virus, that is virus which is deadlier to the human or its host, is likely to be less beneficial because it will ultimately kill the virus. So a lethal virus is more likely to be selected out rather than selected in. So a virus which is more transmissible and less lethal is more likely to have a successful mutation. So this is a very interesting point. So we must understand that lethal viruses are not likely to be the best of mutations from a virus point of view. Now, is SARS-CoV virus 2019 virus mutation prone? Well, the answer fortunately is not that much, because the viral genome is not a segmented genome, unlike some other RNA viruses like influenza. In those RNA viruses which have a segmented genome, there is a rapid shift in characteristics, which is known as antigenic shift in case of influenza. The phenomena is absent in coronavirus. So that in a way is helpful. Like if we go back for the last 1.5 years, although there have been mutations, plenty of mutations in fact reported, very few have been reported consistently. And the first mutation of the SARS-CoV-2 was reported almost after 7 to 8 months of circulation, that is in September 2020. So by that we can definitely say that it is not a very much mutation prone virus. Now, what may be the effect? The effect, as we have all discussed, that the virus may become more transmissible. In that case, it will be a more successful mutation. There is a chance that it may become more lethal. In that case, it is likely to be selected out, or else it, in all probabilities, the third option is that it may become less transmissible, less virulent, and remain in circulation like other coronaviruses, which have since years been known to have caused mild flu-like symptoms and cough and cold. Now, we are not certain in which direction this is going to be, but we'll have to keep a lookout. Question: why is everyone so concerned about the Delta variant? Well, the Delta variant has somehow caught the imagination of the Indian mass as well as the Indian media. I will try to explain very in brief what the Delta variant is. Now, when the mutations were being reported, initially a protocol of numbers indicating the position of the amino acid chains was being followed, but it was observed that these numbers were creating confusion because these numbers were often very similar sounding. So as a result, the WHO decided that they'll be named by alphabets: alpha, beta, gamma, delta, kappa, and so on. Now, this Delta variant is actually the 617.2, which has been reported from many countries in this world. First reported from UK, and it was reported widely from India simultaneously at the time when the second wave picked up. Now, it is assumed that a large amount of cases in the second wave, as far as the Indian subcontinent is concerned, were caused by the Delta variant. Now, what is the beneficial aspect of this? The beneficial aspect would be that by the time the third wave comes, if at all, a sizable population of the Indian subcontinent will ultimately have immunity towards this Delta variant. And it is less likely to be that much of a threat to us in comparison to a country where it is still naive. Question: will the mutants cause a third wave in India? When can we expect it to hit us? Well, this is a very, very difficult question to answer. But more than the mutants, what we all feel is that it is our COVID inappropriate behavior which is likely to spawn a third wave. Rather than thinking of the mutations, we should focus on our preparedness, which includes appropriate behavior, and as also we must try to scale up vaccinations as much as possible at an individual, social, and national level. So, rather than thinking that we may be hit by a tornado of mutants, we should gear up for what we know rather than fear what we don't know. When can we expect it to hit us? Well, as far as modeling is concerned, we can expect it to hit many times between 1 month to 3-4 months from now. But it all depends on, as we said in our earlier comment, that on the COVID appropriate behavior as well as the rate of vaccination. More the vaccination, more we can prolong the arrival and actually flatten the third wave if at all it comes. Flatten means it will be less in number and less in severity. Question: should we administer influenza vaccine to children till specific vaccines for them arrive? Let us understand one thing. Influenza vaccines will no way give any protection to COVID-19 infection. But of course, since the vaccine is available, it is always advisable. This is true for any vaccine preventable disease, that if the vaccine is available, then we should all have it administered for that particular appropriate age group, say under 5 or more than 65, vulnerable population. They should all receive this vaccine irrespective of COVID. So if your child is of the suitable age, definitely he or she should be vaccinated, no doubt about that. But it should be borne in mind that this is not likely to prevent COVID infection, but at least if he has a FARI, fever and acute respiratory illness, from which this vaccine will protect that child, so the chance of getting ill will definitely be reduced. So if possible, definitely you should get administered. In case if somebody has COVID in the intervening period between the first and the second dose, will there be a change in the vaccination schedule? Yes, as per Government of India guidelines, the vaccination schedule will change. The second dose of vaccine has to be taken after 3 months of recovery, that is 12 weeks. This has been done assuming that a natural infection has given a robust immunity against COVID-19. So there is a scope for delaying the second dose of vaccine. However, it must be emphasized that the second dose has to be taken in spite of suffering from COVID. So there is no way by which we can avoid it. Do I need to wear the mask even if I am fully vaccinated? The answer is resoundingly yes. And if you choose to forget every other recommendations or suggestions given in this talk, it would be my earnest request to remember at least this, that we should all continue our COVID appropriate behavior in spite of being fully vaccinated, not only for your sake, but also for the sake of the community. Because even if somebody is fully vaccinated, he or she can still transmit COVID and can still suffer from COVID, at least mild infection of COVID. There are several countries who do not approve Covaxin. So in case somebody is planning to travel, does he or she need to have Covishield? I'm sure the situation is going to change in the coming months, but for the time being, we have to maintain this. Question. So in a summary, do we have any hope of returning to our pre-COVID normal life, or we will have to continue this present situation for many months to come, and COVID will become a part of our lives? Well, the answer to the first part is that yes, we will have to continue with COVID appropriate behavior, and we will have to return to our normal life with COVID appropriate behavior and vaccination, which is perhaps most important. So we should all try to get vaccinated as soon as possible, and in the meantime we should slowly walk back to our normal lives, maintaining COVID appropriate behavior, that is mask, social distancing, and hand cleaning and sanitization. These three are most important against COVID and has to be maintained at all cost. Going forward, we have to assume that COVID will remain in our lives. It is not something that's going to disappear overnight, but as has happened previously for several other respiratory viral illnesses, COVID will probably become an endemic disease. That is, it will continue to occur in small populations across different countries, different settings. It will probably have a seasonal variation, but it will no longer remain an epidemic. But till that time, we must not lower our guards. Regarding vaccination, we will probably have to have booster shots in the coming years, but exactly when or after how many days or how many months or years after the first COVID vaccination is yet to be seen. The bigger question is whether it will be covered as part of national immunization program or not. There is unfortunately no clarity on this as yet, because we have still not reached that time frame. But till then, we have to all assume that COVID will remain in our lives for coming months. Perhaps it will become a lesser of a danger, but the threat will always remain, and we as a community will have to live up to the threat. And I'm very confident that with sincerity, with hope, with dedication, we can and we will fight COVID and humanity will win this battle. Thank you.